I have Mark and Laura Willis with me today. They are the speakers for the President's Forum on Thursday, October 30th. How are you guys doing today?
Just great.
Wonderful.
Good. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us.
Oh, of course. It's a pleasure. So, Brother and Sister Willis, before we get into a little bit more about your guys' messages, you guys have pretty distinguished backgrounds. For example, to start with you, Brother Willis, you've been in different leadership roles, different jobs throughout your life, such as leadership roles at Federal Reserve Banks in Philadelphia and Minneapolis, as well as a publisher for the LA Times, chief executive positions for General Mills, different kind of things. So throughout that career that you've had, what has been, one of the highlights that you take away from it, as in maybe like a moment or a lesson that you learned, or maybe a place that you were that was highlighted there?
One of the things that's been interesting to me is that in all of those different parts of my career, I mean, I was a professor, then I was a government bureaucrat, and then I went and finally got a real job and went into business. But the principles I learned as a member of the church, I could apply in every part of my life. I never had to separate one thing from another. And it was always very comforting to me to know that I was associated with organizations that were organizations of principle, and that I could practice my principles comfortably in every one of those places.
Okay. And I guess what helped you to continue to practice those principles when, you're moving around to different positions, and at times you're in maybe more stressful positions being over a large group of people?
Well, it was a lot of stress. I'll have to admit that. But you have a promise that if you keep the commandments and do all you can to live close to the Savior, He will help you. And on many occasions, I felt like I was in over my head, but I would appeal to heaven for help and then work as hard as I could, and somehow we managed to get through.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. And you were also, speaking of the church, you were president of the Honolulu, Hawaii mission. How was that role compared to all of these other big career jobs that you had?
Well, I hate to admit it, but when I got called to serve as a mission leader, I said to myself, but the Lord heard it, I said, how hard can this be? I've run multi-billion-dollar corporations. It can't be that hard. It was really hard. And He humbled me the first day I got there. And that turned out to be a good thing. I mean, I needed to be humble because I needed to be able to help our missionaries be humble so the Lord could raise them up to be the wonderful missionaries they could be. We had a mission conference once. Because we were scattered across all of the islands, we hardly ever got all of our missionaries together at one time. But President Hinckley had said he would come. And so he came, and so we got all our missionaries together in Honolulu. And they were so excited, and I was so excited. And when it was his time to speak, he got up and he said, well, you don't look like much, but you're all the Lord's got. And I thought, what? But then he quoted the scripture about how the meek things of the world are going to thrash the nations, and then told them what they had to do if they were meek and obedient and worked hard to accomplish miracles. And they just walked out on air. I mean, it was magic to watch how he took them, starting with the need to be meek, and then the Lord can use you to accomplish miracles.
Yeah. So with how difficult that was being a mission president there, especially, as you said, compared to managing these massive companies, right? How were you able to, I guess, use that career experience that you had gained and be able to do an effective job as mission president there?
Well, a lot of the principles were the same. I mean, in business as well as else, where you learn how to set objectives, you learn how to train, you learn how to do all of those things. And all of those were applicable as a mission leader. The thing that was different is that everybody who was serving with us were volunteers. And, they were a miracle, every single one of them. but they also had all their usual challenges. And so you just work hard and you pray hard and thank heavens when you've done all you can do, the Lord does the rest.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Going on to you, or Sister Willis, I guess I should say, sorry. So you are a pretty accomplished author with a lot of books about, different topics, church-related topics, publishings in the Friend, that kind of thing. So I just had a question about, how did you begin your writing career? How did you get into that?
Well, that's an interesting story because I never intended to begin. In the course of our life, we moved a time or two, and we had moved to Minneapolis. We met and married in Salt Lake, but then my husband was going to school in New York. So after we married, we moved to New York. And then his career took us to Philadelphia and then finally to Minneapolis. And I was fascinated by the history of the church in Minneapolis. The history of the church there, as in some other Midwestern places, really started when the saints were driven out of Nauvoo. Because while most of them went west and settled in Utah, some had families in other parts of the country. And there were quite a few people who were native to Minnesota. And so they went north. They didn't leave the church. They just went back to their families to try to be around family and help convert them. So in the course of things, my husband was called, not only he had a big job at work, but he was called a stake president. And I kept saying to him, oh, you need to call a stake historian to write the history of this stake. It is so interesting because it started in Nauvoo with the pineries. The pineries were forests of trees that the saints needed to build the Nauvoo temple. And they were located in southern Wisconsin. And so Joseph Smith sent essentially missionaries, lumberjacks, up the river to harvest the wood that they needed to build the Nauvoo temple. And they sent it down the Mississippi River to Nauvoo because it's connected. So I just thought it was fascinating. So I think he did call one I know of, maybe two, which didn't work out. One then got called to something else, and so he said to me, I'm going to call you to be the stake historian. And I said, wait a minute. I didn't mean that you should call me, but he did, and it was the beginning of me finding out that I had maybe a little ability to. I loved it, and I loved the history, and so I went to work and wrote a history of the Minnesota stake, which when it was organized, it was the only stake in Minnesota. And it not only covered all of Minnesota, but it covered southern Wisconsin, which is where the pineries were. So that was a fun book. It was just published privately for church members. And it's called Local History, and publishers don't think there's much of a market for local history. They think that the group that wants local history is too small. But so that's what got me started.
So I guess it was a mix of both, a church calling, but also just a natural curiosity.
Yes.
Those kind of things.
And a very persuasive husband.
I guess you got to have all three, right?
You got to have all three.
That's awesome. And you also, apart from being an author, you've had several church callings. So I was interested in just, I guess, the comparison between like being a primary teacher or primary president, relief society president, those kind of things versus being a seminary teacher. What was the difference like there?
Well, not much. Maybe more preparation and early in the morning rather than in the afternoon. I was always a stay-at-home mom. I never wanted a career because I wanted to be home with my children. And those were callings that I could do. And I loved them all.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so for your guys' President Forum talks today, Brother Willis, yours is titled "Better Questions Lead to Better Answers," and Sister Willis, yours is "A Story of Light." So, this is a question for both of you. What is, I guess, what is what inspired these topics for you guys?
Go ahead.
I was driving around Lake Minnetonka early one morning going to an appointment. Lake Minnetonka's in Minneapolis. It's a beautiful lake. It was a summer day. There was a little fog on the lake, and it was beautiful. And I happened to turn on the radio of my car, and I heard a man. Well, I had my station on NPR, and he was being interviewed on NPR. And I never knew his name because I got there right in the middle of his interview. But he was starting to tell a story about the Depression. And he had grown up on a farm, a little dairy farm in northeastern Iowa. And they didn't get electric lights on that farm until 1948, if you can believe that. And he was telling about what life was like to live by coal oil lamps and on the dairy farm. And I think it was a combination of this beautiful day. And then they got word that they were going to get electricity. The power company was going to string the wires, and they were going to have lights. And so listening to him talk, I just thrilled with their reaction of the family to this opportunity to get electric lights and what more light meant in their lives. And I saw immediately a connection to the gospel. So it's one of my favorite stories, and it's true. And I don't know if anybody else has ever heard it.
Then you're sharing it, then, right?
I chose this topic. President Meredith asked us to talk about what we've learned that might be of interest to those here on campus. And whether you're trying to solve a problem in business, reach an objective, whether you're trying to understand something about the gospel, it turns out that the better the question you ask, the better the answer you're going to get. Think, for example, of somebody who faces a very difficult situation. They can say, "Why me?" Or they can say, "What can I learn from this?" They're going to have a much more productive sequence of events if they try to learn from it rather than just complain about it. And that's true in every profession I know of. It's true in our spiritual lives, our temporal lives. And so I'm just going to tell a bunch of stories that hopefully illustrate in different environments. The better question we ask, the more likely we are to get a better answer.
Mm-hmm. Great. And for, I guess, one last thing, for your guys' talks, for those that will be in attendance and those that might not be able to make it, or those that'll, hear this later, what would you guys say is just, one of the main takeaways that you would like people to get from your talks?
Go ahead.
Well, I just hope that they will want to get more light into their lives and that they will go through the procedures to do so. And that's what I'm going to talk about.
I'm going to conclude my talk today by saying the most important question any of us ask is, who am I? And for me, the answer to that is, I am a disciple of Jesus Christ.
It sounds pretty simple, doesn't it?
Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing that today.
I try not to get emotional.
Yeah, that's okay. It's all right. It happens. It's all right. Anything else that you guys would add?
No, you've been very good.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much, Brother and Sister Willis, for
Thank you.
joining us today, and thank you for your talks.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very kind.
Yeah.